Okay, were we good?
Hmm?
Okay, so we talked about I think we got to all of your films and we managed to get in Volcanic Pub and we talked about mental health, and which I could talk about all day with you. Um,
Which
yeah,
is fine.
yeah. Okay, so I mean, you were basically kind of like the John Dennis in Bend, Oregon. Would you say is that kind of a good, I don't know, I mean, you were teaching acting at the community college. You started the actor's realm, and then you kind of put on your business hat and did the Volcanic Theater Works with your architect friend who helped you build that. And then, but now it's like, you're kind of tired of the entrepreneur hat and you want to go back and do the more, kind of go back to doing what I guess,
Well, yeah,
film.
my I think if you go as far back as a teenager to now, in my mid 50s, the one constant theme for me is I create. That's who I am. Um, I often am asked, "Where do you come up with that shit?" I'm like, "Well, that's the eternal question, right? I mean, I don't know. It just comes out.
What else would you?
Um,
Yeah,
it's what I do,
yeah.
and it's what my brain does. Now, whether bipolar disorder has anything to do with it, I don't know and don't care. Um, I love how David Lynch describes it. He describes creativity because I so when he said it, I went, I understand that, dude.
Hmm.
Um, he said, I do meditate. I have to, but he talks about transcendental meditation a lot. He has a actually a film school that main focus is on writing and transcendental meditation. Um, but he said ideas, and he's very visual, probably much more visual than I am in his approach. Um, but he'll start with pictures. He'll see something, and he talks about. For me, it's vocal. I'll be driving around on my motorcycle or in my Jeep. I don't have radio on. I don't have music on. I daydream. I allow things to just come out. And I talk to myself a lot. And that's some oftentimes where a piece of dialogue could start an idea. And Lynch describes it as there's an idea. It's not a story, but it's an idea. But it's a little bitty one. But throw that one in, it's like fishing. And that fish is going to catch a bigger fish. Throw that one in, and that's going to catch a bigger fish. And the fish keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger until you finally have a story. And you don't know again where they come from originally or even how they evolved. Sometimes just sitting down and writing and things just start flowing and coming to you. Other times, David Mamet describes writing, which is also, I'm like, I understand that. He says, when you're writing, you have an idea, and but all of a sudden you get stuck. And I always get stuck. I'm like, what do I do now? And he goes, you're going to get stuck. But here's the great thing about it. You are going to find a way out of it
Mm-hmm.
because the character's got to find a way out of it. And you're going to find a way out of it. But here's the great thing about it. The audience is going to get stuck too. And they're going to wonder, how the hell is he going to get out of it? I'm like, oh, it's beautiful. not only normal, it's beneficial for the story because it moves the audience to go, what's he going to do now? How's he going to get out of this mess?
Yeah.
So I love the idea of how similar many artists are in their creation, and then also how different we are because of where we come from. Like my stories usually, if you have a recurring voice in it, they are broken, damaged people, and usually rural America. And if you look at Mammoth, almost always Chicago. Shepard, he loved the West. Steinbeck loved the Dust Bowl Okie area, like Bakersfield and Visalia, and up in towards Northern California. They had specific voices and recurring themes, and it's fascinating to me. It's like, oh, like I hope to someday capture this. But I love seeing an image from a film. Have you ever seen played the game Framed?
No.
It's very similar to Wordle. Every night, Framed puts up an image, screenshot, and you get 6 guesses what film that is. Some you go, boom, know what that is. Some are so obscure, you're like, well, that could be anything. I don't know what that is. Maybe I haven't even seen it. But what I do love is when I see a trailer or an image from a film, I can identify that director right away. Like you only need one image to know a Wes Anderson film. It's Wes Anderson. Like, I know who that is. Again, it becomes more of a cinematic motion picture visual experience. Sometimes you know what a Scorsese film is. Many people try to, like when they did Joker with Joaquin Phoenix,
Right.
they try to replicate Taxi Driver because the overall feeling of being in New York is so vibrant in Taxi Driver. You always know you're in New York in a Scorsese film.
Sure.
Differently than Woody Allen in Manhattan. It's a different New York.
Yeah.
Spike Lee, Tim Burton. Immediate, it's a Tim Burton film in one image. I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever be that visually minded as a director. Might be more like a Darren Aronofsky, who is more of a character-driven film director that, Requiem for a Dream, Black Swan, The Wrestler, The Whale.
Yeah.
There's I have to say this. There's do you remember American Playhouse? It was a television program. It was similar to Masterpiece Theater. American Playhouse would have these Broadway shows, but they would go on set with their video cameras and shoot and edit and piece together the play and put it on TV. Well, they did. Now, I was already a big fan of Steppenwolf at this time. But they had a production of True West, the original, with Malkovich and Sinise. Sinise directed and also played Austin, and Malkovich played Lee. Nobody knew who either one of these guys were, but they showed up on Broadway. And then Malkovich was instant stardom. Malkovich had never auditioned for a role in his life.
Good.
True West just catapulted him into stratospheric star from that one performance. I watched that so many times that it probably could have ruined my career, because I found it as an acting Bible because the way they approached it. And I tried to share copies of this VHS tape to everybody I ran into. You have to watch this, because Malkovich is brilliant. He's stunning. The performance is a little self-indulgent, but that approach, that American Playhouse production of shooting a play, like, oh, I want to do that. I think that's where everything started for me is, oh, you can definitely write a play and shoot it. A lot of people adapt, many people adapt plays into film. Another Steppenwolf actor, Tracy Letts, who's from Oklahoma, his plays are all adapted into film. There's August Osage County, because he's at Steppenwolf, and he wrote that specifically for the cast of actors they had at Steppenwolf. He wrote it for that. He wrote Bug, if you've seen that, with what's the girl's? I love her. Oh, she'll come to me in a minute. But John Patrick Shanley, also a playwright that I absolutely adore, his films like Doubt, A Parable with Meryl Streep and Philip Seymour Hoffman. When you look at their character-driven dramas with limited locations, I'm like, oh, this is precisely what I want to do.
Yeah.
And that's probably what I'll continue to do. But utilizing my own imagination and my own visuals I see in my head, and always being character driven, and always focusing on story. And for me, story is always, and for me, I always break it down, even to my students, to 5 things. And it starts with character. Number 1, always character. What does he want? What does he want? One person wants one thing. Start there. There's your story. That's your plot too. Their journey of getting what they want. It's fundamentally, it's pretty simple. Executing, not so easy, but pretty simple. Then you have obstacles in their way. That's drama. That's conflict. That's what tells the story. Then you have stakes. What happens if they get or don't get what they want? That creates suspense. That creates the intensity, and it then creates the vitality of what's happening in the story, any good story. And then you have your how they get what they want. It reveals the type of person and type of character they are. It can reveal a whole biography of who these people were and who their parents were, and then finally it's commitment. Personalize it, mean it. If you start there with those 5 things, you can tell a good story. You got to be passionate about it. And I think all the great voices of American film directors, and the great writers, and the great playwrights, great theater directors, almost all of them move into film. I can't think of any that haven't. I mean, Sam Shepard did it. Martin McDonagh has done it very successfully. Albee, I mean, Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf is an enormous cinematic film. So that's probably going to be a through line for me, is shooting that way. Film students learn something completely different. They approach with, they learn uh, camera technique, which lenses to use. You know, it's a completely different process than an actor's approach. So when you see an actor directing, um, even if they're directing themselves, like, you know, Gary Sinise, he directed him and Malkovich in Of Mice and Men, and it's a fantastic film.
Yeah.
And of course, you have Clint Eastwood, who does, you know, a movie every year. Um, Spike Lee's in a lot of his own movies. Um, but I think that experience as an actor and studying scripts and dissecting plays and dissecting characters gave me the opportunity and knowledge to actually have confidence to sit down and write something and be heavily influenced by people, but also have my own voice and understanding that this is what I'm going to write. Like sometimes John would question in Butt Tussle, like, what is this? What is this? I don't know what this line means. I don't know what this means. I'm like, well, he's intoxicated, John. I mean, how many times have you seen somebody intoxicated that just all of a sudden just goes off on something? It's like, where are you? And I had to explain, it's like, why does everybody have to be so mean?
Oh, yeah.
You can't trust nobody. He goes, where does that come from? I'm like, because John, he just realized he's been screwed over and he's intoxicated again. And I said, just take a deep breath and tell the universe that. And he took the note, and that's when you see him up to the gods. So why does everybody have to be so mean? So being a writer and having the confidence as a writer is growing, but again, still always heavily influenced by playwrights and Pulitzer Prize-winning playwrights that are damn good at what they do. That would be always my goal. To be a Gary Sinise, to be a, you know, a Martin McDonough. And Martin McDonough's an interesting story. His plays, you know, I've done several of them. His first film was in Bruges with Colin Farrell.
Mm-hmm.
Same cast that's in Banshees of Inisherin. But he based that story on The Dumbwaiter by Harold Pinter, which I'd also done. So it's always fascinating to me to find out where these people get their ideas, their influences, and I'm like, oh, we're not all that different, really.
Yeah.
Our processes and how we get there differ, but the creation, when you are an artist, when you are a creator, you know, I think everyone has something in common. Process is probably a little different, but how we're influenced, that's such a big deal, though, how we're influenced.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our childhoods, the people we ran around with, you know, the people we dated, the people uh, that shaped our adolescence, and then into our teenage years, and then into college, and then into adulthood and marriage and having children. I mean, all these things shape us, who we are, in addition to, you know, your struggles and your triumphs. And I think we always go back to our roots.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me.
Yeah.
Like
And
I've done Banshees back in Ireland, where he's from, and I think it's his best film. And I'm like, oh, he's always going to go back there, and he should. And Sam Shepard always wrote about his dad. It was such a profound thing for him in every play. he mentions his dad, and he always mentions him not being there.
Oh. So would you ever go back to Oklahoma?
Mm. See my mom,
Mm.
and then that's it. I mean, I love where I'm from. I embrace being an Okie. I love a lot of people there. Um, my childhood was good. Um, it I found out was much different than people that once I got to college and understood that people actually got along with each other, that families weren't always angry at each other. Um, families, they were like my wife's parents. First time, I'm like, oh my God, it's Ozzy and Harriet. I didn't know these people existed. Um, it's a different culture for sure, but I love the fact that that's where I'm from. But there just wouldn't be a great deal of opportunity there for me. I love my mom, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of people there that friends you went to school with, and I'm not real close with any of them,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I'd go to visit. I'd love to see a lot of people, but no, I don't. I certainly wouldn't live there.
Yeah, not to live there. Yeah. Yeah,
No,
get that. I mean, it's just it's complicated. Like, yeah.
I'd go back to Louisiana before I go to Oklahoma, because
Okay.
it's southern Louisiana is culturally rich. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's there's a lot going on.
Oh yeah.
Because I we haven't talked about it, but when I went to uh, when I decided to go to grad school, I had lots of options actually, but I chose LSU because I one of John Dennis, and because of the culture. I was fascinated with New Orleans and Southern Louisiana
Mhm.
much more than the other places. But I wanted to experience that um, vibrant, swampy,
Yeah.
bluesy,
Interesting.
Creole, Cajun. I just wanted to dive into it. So I was first semester, first play, main stage. I was the lead, and I don't know how I did so many plays at LSU.
Oh,
I was actually going from a main stage production to rehearsal for a black box production. Then after that, I was going to band rehearsal or to a gig, and I did that for 3 years. I was so in addition to the classes, I was in play rehearsals almost every night, or in production almost every night, and then going to a black box production, and then going to band rehearsal, and then also teaching advanced acting to undergrads. So um, I was so busy in 3 years there. I did so much that I look back on it once I was diagnosed with bipolar, and after people were making comments about me in graduate school, everything made sense. I'm like, of course I did it. Of
okay.
course I double majored in undergrad because I had the energy to do it. I was doing 5 plays a year and double majoring. Of course I did it. I had the energy. People like, I don't know how you do it. I'm like, just do it. You look back on it and go, oh, I was manic. Of course.
Yeah.
In your
Interesting.
20s, your body can handle it.
Hmm.
You could just go. And you had a lot of, I had the innate ability before even the training to believe those circumstances very quickly. Realism came easy to me quickly. The other stuff wasn't so easy for me. But you give me Sam Shepard, Mamet, Tennessee Williams, I'm in there. Give me Shakespeare, I'm like, okay, what is this?
Okay.
Wait, I don't know what this is.
Huh.
I remember Barry Kyle telling me I was doing Hamlet, and he said something. Eventually, it made sense. He goes, Derek, you are, I feel, therefore I am. He said, you're like, you get on an emotional surfboard, and once you hit that emotion, you just start riding it. We have to go, Derek, Hamlet's over here. And you go, okay. And you start riding it over there. And everything was just guttural and visceral, and everything had to be that. And he said, not everything is method acting, Derek. I'm like, yeah, it is.
So you
Why
played,
not?
you were Hamlet in the play?
It was,
Or-
no, it was scene work
Oh, okay.
in class and Barry was teaching. And it was an Oh Wild Rogue speech. And it was, and even JD said something to me once we were doing Chekhov, and I was playing Trigorin, the seagull, and all of a sudden I was, uh, I just started banging my head on the table,
Oh.
and I was there, and he stopped. Derek, what? What are you doing? I don't know. I'm upset. And he just shakes his head. Derek, not every character's from Oklahoma. And I thought he was talking about my accent.
Oh, oh, okay.
Later on, I realized, oh, this is turn of the century Russia. People just don't randomly go around banging their head on stuff. This is a different culture. So the experience at LSU, not only did JD is so insightful and recognized who I was very quickly, American realism came easy to me, where the other stuff was quite the struggle.
Yeah.
Because I had to believe it and feel it. Pretend was no didn't work for me. Technique didn't work for me because I felt if you could passionately thrust yourself into an objective, all the other elements of the acting craft fall into place. You'll be heard, you'll know where to go, your blocking will be taken care of, everything's done. That's how I work. And to this day, that's still how I work. Because it's where I'm the most effective as an actor and probably as a writer and a director. The other stuff they talked about epic theater and like I didn't find any use in it because Barry and JD could not be any more different. And when Barry cast me in the first big main stage production, and I was playing a Nazi SS officer, but it was completely different work, and I didn't understand it. I do now, of
Yeah.
course, but at that time everything was just outrageous and intense and dysfunctional and broken and I still deal with those people, but I understood that not everybody's from small town Oklahoma, and not every play or character is written that because JD said, I'd like once for you to play a bank teller because I'd like to see you play somebody where there's not something wrong with them. I said, I don't know how to do that. And I don't know why I would. So that's where it all started. I play broken people. I write about broken people,
Broken people.
damaged, outrageous circumstances that to me aren't that outrageous.
Yeah.
I've seen it. I've experienced it. I know those people.
You play like your thing is the broken people who are broken. Like they're not hiding it. They're not, I don't know. Is that what you mean?
They're visibly,
Yeah.
noticeably
broken,
damaged, and
like
not every character is different. I mean, some are much more subtle about it.
Like with
Some are
Chekhov,
much more.
yeah. Like with Chekhov, it's like the characters are like there's like a repression. Is that?
Oh yeah. It's. I mean, they're people forget that they are comedies.
Yeah.
And the repressed and the depressed of these characters in these worlds, you have discovered Chekhov. And once you've realized Chekhov, same with Shakespeare. I learned about Shakespeare there, is once you learn the brilliance, the genius of Shakespeare, and trust the meter, and trust the rhythm, what happens to you internally is written in the music of the rhythm of the meter. So you just trust it and it'll take you there. You don't have to, dive into it like you're doing Tennessee Williams. You trust the meter. Chekhov is the same thing, as you have to trust turn of the century Russia at that time, and understand that this is how these people behaved. And silent dysfunction is much more difficult to portray than the outrageous dysfunction. But once you learn how to do it, like I was doing a main stage play called Mad Forest at LSU. And one of the scenes, the director said, I don't want you to move. I said, what? Don't move. Just stay still, standing the entire scene. I'm like, no, because that's not who I was. I've never done that before in my life. I'm not, what? And I did it. And it felt uncomfortable as hell. And I kept doing it. I'll send you a picture. It was me and Sean Bridgers. Sean Bridgers from Deadwood. Do you know Deadwood?
No.
So Sean's had a pretty successful film television career. And we did quite a few plays together. And anyway, what I learned was, if you take all the energy that I had and focused it and just stood still and put every single ounce of it into your objective, it actually became more powerful than somebody that was more kinetic. And JD taught me that, particularly for film, that's why you see a performance like Tutu Grande, where he's appears to be very grounded.
Yeah.
but he's very, very dangerous
Yes.
because of the stillness. Unlike Koi,
Oh,
who's complete opposite.
yeah. Yeah.
And you know, and you when you learn those techniques, in different circumstances, different characters, it and when you're writing, not just for yourself but for other characters, you've got to really put your mind and go, okay,
Mm.
this is not how I would do it, because this is a completely different character, probably one I'm not going to play. And then you have to write that down with the same energy and stillness and understand that how the performance is going to go. So like in Bug Tussle, originally didn't know who was going to be Crow or Coyote. I didn't have it cast, and probably was going to play Crow. When then John said to me, I like put my hat in if you ever do this for Crow. But then it came to a time like, you know what, guys, let's shoot this thing. And I just called up John and said, hey, you want to do this? Yeah. Well, this is when we're doing it. Can you do it? Yeah. All right. And I called up Taylor, said, this is when we're going to do it, where we're going to do it. Let's do it. And by God, I'll play Coyote because it's during a pandemic. The fewer people we have on set, the better. There were 6 of us, 3 cast members, 3 crew members. That was it, one day. And playing Coyote with John was a whole lot of fun, because Coyote's he's unhinged. He's in a spectrum too. There's a lot going on with that guy.
Oh, you had the best costume in the movie, that's for sure.
Took me forever to find that shirt. Took me forever to find that shirt. It was actually a women's shirt.
Oh.
And I had to wear, really a lot of weight, wore really baggy clothes to make me appear even smaller. Because I want him to be that little wiry, little, almost meth addicted little, kind of unhinged guy that might just pop off at any moment. And innocent and childlike, not Lenny.
Yeah.
Disabled, but still simple, innocent, childlike, yet dangerous. And that was kind of the goal with Coyote, and to understand him. And he's kind of funny too. He's
No.
and the script was written to be I don't say a comedy for sure, but it was written that circumstances is pretty outrageous.
Dark comedy, yeah. Well,
It's absurd. Beverly Hills is an hour and a half down the road, guys. Just FYI. It's not that long of a drive. But for them, and I understood this, it's like when I grew up, people going to Tulsa was a major life decision. I'm like, just go. It's 80 miles. But for those people with, in poverty, that dream of just going to Hollywood or Beverly Hills was a major obstacle and a major risk for them. And for a lot of people, seemed impossible.